All right, Shalom. I just wanted to just do a little commentary of this conversation I had a few days ago with this character named the Preacher Perry. Right, his real name is Perry Green, which is the guy's comical. Right, we all know who this guy is. Right, this is the guy that supposedly, he can never sin. Right, he's perfect because he believes in Jesus. He can. That means since he believes in Christ, that means that he can do whatever he wants. He can smoke, he can murder, he can do whatever the hell he wants because once he believes in Jesus, that's all he has to do. Very comical character. You know what I'm saying? So the other day, some of my dudes were live and they had this guy on their show ready. Click the link to hop on with them for a conversation. So when I stopped by to listen to the conversation, all of them bugged me and nagged me to join the stream to have a conversation with Perry for entertainment purposes, which I won't lie, I thought it was pretty entertaining myself. But it was 20 degrees outside, so I had to get my ass out of bed, put a coat on and go outside to join this guy. For certain reasons I can't, sit in my bed and do it, but that's a topic for another time. But but regardless of that, it was a pretty funny conversation. So I'm going to play this for you, and then I'm gonna pause it when I want to comment on something being said. Because I mean, this has to be like the top two conversations I've had with this guy Perry Green, man. I mean, the level of hypocrisy and self-contradictory in this conversation is just absolutely amazing. I mean, this is enough to make you piss your pants in laughter. I mean, this is amazing right here. I mean, so I'm going to press play on this, and then I'm gonna pause it when I want to chime in. I mean, but this is classic Perry Green behavior right here. I mean, this is crazy. So, you may as well go get yourself some popcorn or something, because this is gonna be pretty funny to listen to.
Hold on, I was just joining, and I heard you guys saying something about the Bible is always literal, right? Well, I got a question for you.
I've got a question for you first.
Well, wait, let me. Well, for the sake of argument, we'll just say yes. Now, my answer.
Okay.
Bear with me a second. So my question is.
Now you're halfway there. You're halfway there now. You're halfway there.
All right, John 6, when it speaks about how you got to eat his flesh and drink his blood, is that literal? Because you said it's all supposed to be taken as literal.
But
so
Jesus,
you must say
Jesus
that it's
went on
literal.
to explain that the bread represents his flesh and the wine represents his.
Now let me stop right here real quick. I understand in John the 6th chapter, right, when Christ spoke about how you got to eat his flesh and drink his blood. Obviously, if you read the context of the chapter, he was referring to like it's a symbolic meaning. It's not literal because even when you read the chapter, the people who just heard him say that, they thought that he was talking about cannibalism, but we find out that that's not actually true. But there's a reason I'm asking him this. I'm simply asking him because, again, remember this. According to Perry's ideology, all he has to do is just read one verse, and then he says, well, the verse says what it means, right? It says what it says. And it's all supposed to be taken as literal, every verse. So he has a stance about everything else, but apparently this one time he's going to say, well, I got to read the whole chapter to get the context. Well, wait a second. Don't you sit there and say that every verse means what it says? So that's what I wanted to ask him about here. It's like if we go to a verse, like let me get one for an example for you. This is what I was asking him about. And remember, I know the breakdown of what it's talking about, but I'm simply asking because by his logic, he said you just have to read one verse and then it means exactly what it says. So it's like, wait a second. So this verse right here, because again, according to his logic, you can't get the context. Every verse means exactly what it says, according to Perry. So by this, John chapter 6, verse 53, it says, and Christ said unto them, verily, verily, I say unto you, except you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, ye have no life in you. Whoso eateth my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. So again, going by the logic, he can't use the context, because by his logic, you can only read one verse at a time, and the verse means exactly what it means. But now we'll do a 360 flip when it's convenient for his plot and say, well, no, in this context you got to read the whole chapter, but on anywhere else in the Bible, you just got to read each verse for itself. So, I deliberately picked this verse on purpose because I knew he would have to do a twist like that. He would have to twist himself into a damn pretzel and say, well, you have to read the context. But this completely refutes his whole ideology that every verse is literal for what it says by itself. I mean, this is a clear example where that's not the case. So clearly I refuted his whole argument based on that. But you're going to see the nonsense this guy tries to pull.
The bread represents his flesh and the wine represents his blood. He went on to explain that himself. So you're leaving that part out and just focusing on that verse.
It's not.
And yes,
it's not that I'm. Hold on. It's not that I'm leaving it out.
You're leaving it out.
I'm simply asking you.
You're leaving it out. You're being
are you able?
sarcastic.
No, nobody's being sarcastic. I literally am asking you a question because you said that it should always be taken literal. So I'm asking you.
So then you would literally also have to accept that Jesus did clarify that the bread represents his flesh and the blood is represented by the wine. He did clarify that.
Okay,
Do you admit that?
Okay, now.
Do you admit that?
Yes.
Okay, so that right there shows that sometimes, like in cases like that, you need a couple other verses to help explain the wine.
Okay.
And I'll also point out once again that this is like the only time in the Bible he'll ever say that. I've never seen this guy make that statement about any other passage in the Bible, because again, his slogan is every verse means what it says. But apparently it's not true with the one in John, though, where you got to read the whole context there, but on anywhere else in the Bible, you don't have to. Like, say, for example, later in the video, you're going to see he runs to, Romans 6:14. It says, well, see, I can't sin because of this. I'm not under the law. But then he'll skip the next verse. He'll skip the context that says even though you're not under the law, you should still follow it. So that's a clear example of the hypocrisy here. He'll sit there and say, oh, every verse means what it says. But then in this particular time, now you have to read the whole chapter. I mean, again, any dummy out there that can't see it, this guy is full of shit. I mean, I don't even know what to say to you. I mean, this is amazing. I mean, this is, the clown of the year, man. This is amazing.
Yeah, but Perry, here's where you're cut. I already knew that's the breakdown, but I'm simply asking you, if you're saying we got to read every verse for what it says, when we read the verses by itself, when it says that you got to eat his flesh, drink his blood, you must then by logic say, well, that must be literal.
No, by logic, I would read down a couple more verses and find out what Jesus is really talking about.
But wait a second.
He does explain it, and you're leaving that out.
Yo, hold on a second. But Perry, you don't like when we do that.
And it's funny. It's not that I'm leaving it out. It's like I literally just asked you a question about the one verse because you said every verse has to be taken as literal. So it's not that I'm leaving the rest out. I'm simply asking you a question about the one verse. I mean, again, the fact that he can't understand this is just amazing to me.
It's invalid, dude.
Wait, but hold on a second.
You still serve sin. Your argument is invalid.
Hey, Jay, hold on a second. Either he's going to give me a chance to speak, or I'm going to drop. I only came on here to have a fair conversation.
But you're not being fair. You're asking underhanded questions and leaving stuff out.
How the hell is that an unfair question, right? Underhanded question, he said. How the hell is that the case? You said everything is literal, so I ask you a question about a verse that clearly is not literal, and then you gotta, make a fool of yourself and say, well, no, in that context, got to read the whole chapter, even though I say every verse should be taken literal. I mean, how is that an underhanded question? I mean, that one, nobody's ever asked you that question before, so you were unprepared on how to handle that.
To try and drive a narrative.
How is that an underhanded question? You literally said everything should be taken literal.
Because you're leaving out like half the chapter.
Dude, I literally didn't leave it out.
Try to prove a point, but your point is moot. It doesn't matter. Your point's invalid because Jesus does clarify that the bread is the flesh and the wine is the blood.
All right. Well. And anyway, you said that I didn't actually read the whole Bible when I actually did, and it was the King James version. So what do you guys say to that?
You're lying.
I am not lying.
Okay.
Matter of fact, you just committed a sin because you
I
just lied
can't
and
say
said,
that.
Why the hell? Hold on a second. Why the hell would I lie about if I did or didn't read the entire Bible? Like, say, for example, if you asked me 5 years ago, have I read the entire Bible, I would give an honest answer and say, no, I haven't read the entire Bible. But guess what? We're 5 years later now, so I'll say, yes, I have read the entire Bible. When I was 16, I've read the entire Bible, cover to cover. I've also, when I was 18, I've read the entire Bible cover to cover, all 80 books, which he doesn't know there's 80 books of the Bible. Because he rejects the Apocrypha, but that's a different topic. Um, but I've read it 2 times cover to cover, and then of course I've also went through and I've read each individual book multiple times by themselves, right? So to sit there and say I haven't read the Bible, I mean, you're just that's just being stupid. It's like, why would I lie about that? And here's the funny thing. It's like, then I ask him, well, have you read it? He says, yes. But then I say, well, what if I say that you're lying? It's like, how would you defend yourself then? If you're saying I'm lying, well, who's to stop me from saying that you're lying then? And then later you're going to see, he asked me, well, how long did it take you to actually read the entire book the first time? And I said, it took me, the first time I read it cover to cover, it took me about 6 months to completely read it all the way through. Because I would read it a few chapters a day, whatever I had, time available to me. So then he says, "Oh, we'll see. You didn't actually read it because it was over such a, long time period." Then I ask him, "Well, wait. So how long did it take you to read the entire Bible when you read it for the first time?" And he said it took him a month to read it. So then I said, "Well, wait a second. What if I said that you didn't technically read it then because it took you over a month to read the entire thing?" Like that's like the same line of logic of argument, right? I mean, it's like it's amazing to me. This is just astounding and amazing to me.
I can't say it.
but how did you just lie then?
I didn't.
You just lied on me. I said I did, and you said
Okay.
I'm lying.
So you
So
sat
you
down and
don't
you read the
lie.
entire Bible in one shot.
I've read the entire Bible cover to cover.
Entire Bible one shot, but he didn't even read the entire Bible in one shot though. So I mean that's the hypocrisy. And when he says one shot, I would imagine he's saying like you opened it and didn't stop reading until you hit the last page, like literally all in one day in one sitting. Obviously, nobody's out here doing that. Even if you look at the world records for the amount of time that like the shortest amount of time the Bible's been read, if you look at that, they even have groups of people that are involved in it. So it's not just like one individual sitting there for 48 hours reading the entire book. It's like a group of people, a whole circle of people. One person read 4 hours, and they'll give it to the next person. Read another 6 hours, and they'll give it to somebody else. Read 3 hours, and so on and so forth. That's how the world record works. One person isn't sitting there reading the entire thing for 3 days straight. So this guy clearly just don't know what's going on.
Did it 2 times.
How long did it take you?
How long did it take me?
Right.
It took a few months, like I'd say 6 months to do it.
Okay, so you didn't really do it. Exactly.
No, I did. I read cover to cover, starting
No,
at
that's
the
not how it works, dude.
beginning.
That's not how it works.
Wait, that's not how it works. But how the hell did you read it then? So if you're not supposed to read it cover to cover, then how the hell did you read it? And then I ask him, and he says, "Well, I did read it like that, but it took me a month." It's like, so wait a second. What if I said that you didn't read the whole thing then? Come on, this is just. I can't even believe it. You have dumbasses out there who actually believe and follow this character, man. This is classic right here.
How's that not how it works?
Like you have to actually study.
Wait a second. Hold on a
to
second.
show yourself approved.
Harry, you mean to tell me that you opened the Bible and read it completely all in one day? You mean to tell me that?
The first time took about a month. The second time took less than that, and it's just been going ever since.
Wait. So what if I said that you didn't technically read it then? How would
But
you
I've
argue?
not only read it, I've read it like 1,000 times.
Okay, but here's the problem. You just got on me when I said I took 6 months to read the whole thing, but now
No,
you're
I
saying it took
read the
you
whole thing. I don't think,
months to read the whole thing.
and it doesn't matter. That's my opinion. I'm allowed to have.
How many books? How many books are in the Bible?
66.
80. Actually, there's 80 books in the Bible, so I've read.
No, there's not. There's not. In the King James, there's 66 books.
Yeah, but there was multiple
Right, so
books
now you're
taken out by the
lying on
Catholic
that
Church.
too.
He said now I'm lying on that too. I mean, again, the ignorance and the arrogance of this guy is just amazing and astounding. And may I also point out, by the way, he said he's only been reading the Bible or believing in Jesus for like 3 years, right? So since like what, the end of 2019, early, like basically from lockdown, right? From the Corolla lockdown in 2020, basically that's when this guy started to read the Bible. And by the way, I've been, studying this stuff and believing this stuff for like 8 years, right? Since I was like 12, 13 years old, right? So I got, more years under my belt than this character, ironically enough. But yeah, it's just amazing to me. This guy has only been studying the Bible for 3 years, but yet he's sitting on here acting like he's some type of like deep know-it-all, right? Like his, like he knows something, right? It's amazing to me.
What about the Apocrypha?
Yeah, it's
Of course you
this
do.
this shows that you're just uneducated on the topic.
I'm very
Yeah, and it shows that he's uneducated. He said, when I said that there's 80 books in the Bible, he said, well, no, there's 66. It just shows that now you're lying on it. It's like, no, it shows you're uneducated. Because if you knew what you were talking about, excuse the ambulam in the background, if you knew what you were talking about, you would know that in the 1800s there was a group called the Biblical Destruction Group who worked with the Catholic Church to remove certain parts of the Bible out of our modern books that we have. So yeah, the modern King James Version only has 66 books. But if you have a Bible, say from 400 years ago, it had 80 books in it. So yeah, the Bible actually has 80 books. It's just the one you have now, it has certain books that are removed from it. So again, the fact that he could sit there and say that I'm lying on it and I'm ignorant of it, again, it's just astounding and amazing because you can find this information out with like 10 minutes of, searching on the internet. This is not hard, man.
educated on it. I know how many books are in the Bible.
But how do you
What's
know
your-
that exactly?
What's your thoughts on the Apocrypha? Have you read that?
Sitting right next to me. I have. I think the same thing of it as I think that everything else is not in the Bible. It's not in there for a reason.
Wait, so, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know his faults on the Apocrypha before. I know he doesn't subscribe to it, but I didn't know why exactly. So apparently he says because it don't line up with the Bible. I mean, I challenge him on that. I mean, even Jesus himself quotes from the Apocrypha. That's, if you want to read that, that's Matthew chapter 23, verse 37. And he's getting that from 2nd Ezra chapter 1, verse 30. It literally has the same quote. And the Apocrypha was written before Christ existed, so the place that Christ got the quote must have been from the book in the Apocrypha. So again, it's just amazing, the ignorance of this dude. It's just amazing.
So why did Christ quote from the Apocrypha then?
Listen, that's irrelevant to the fact that you still serve sin, dude. And I'm not in the business of sitting here and arguing with you and nitpicking over bullshit. You still serve sin. That's your problem.
But I
Right?
can prove.
And I'm not-
But I can prove you do
I
too.
cannot sin.
But you just
1
committed
John
a
3:9
sin.
says real believers cannot sin. What are you judging me by? What standard?
What standard? The
Yeah.
standard.
The law.
What am I breaking for you to say I'm a sinner?
Well, for one, I mean, you literally just committed a lie on me on the stream.
Okay, so but what
Liar, right?
says the lie is bad? What says that a lie is a sin? What is that?
What says a lie is a sin? I mean, the laws of God say that lying is a sin, right? And here, you're going to see this later on in the video, but I clearly cut his ass to shreds. So I ask him, because then he'll say that the law of Christ is different from God's law. So then I ask him, well, wait, you believe that Jesus Christ is God, right? He says, yes. So then that means the law in the Old Testament, that's God's law, right? Yes. So wait, if Jesus is God, right, and Jesus is the God of the Old Testament, doesn't that mean that the law that he gave down to Moses was actually the law of Christ then, because Christ was God? I mean, it's like, how do you get around that? And the answer is he can't. That's why he didn't address the question when I asked him it later on in the video. But again, it just shows the ignorance and how retarded this guy is, right? As Mina Shareg would say, right? People are mentally retarded, and he's right. And this is a pure, clear example of somebody being mentally retarded.
You judging
What's
me?
this? what says a lie is sin? Well,
What
the
are you
scripture
judging me by?
He's
It's in
the Mosaic law.
Right.
yeah, it's the
by
old law.
the law. He's judging me by the old law. Now I'm going to ask the two that are here, right?
What do you mean?
And both of them, I just got done telling Jay I don't even know where he stands. And me and Arthur, me and him had our
Arthur.
thing last week. Okay, so I'm going to ask them. He's talking about the Mosaic law. So according to the Bible, am I under the Mosaic law? I'm asking you guys.
Talking to me?
Yeah.
From what I've learned from you, I would say no.
Okay. So Romans 6:14 says very clear that I'm not under the law, I'm under grace. Romans 7:4 says I'm dead to the law. Romans 10:4 says I'm not under the law. Ephesians 2:15 says Jesus abolished it for the believers. Right? 1 Timothy 1:9 says the law is not made for a righteous man. Romans 5:19 says I'm made righteous by the blood of Christ.
I may also point out real quick, remember what I said earlier, all he does is cherry pick like one verse in a chapter and then he'll say, well, it means exactly what it says, even though the verses right under it completely contradict his breakdown of the verse. So again, this is just amazing and astounding to me, the level of ignorance right here.
Therefore, that makes me a righteous man, and I'm not under the law. Right?
Okay, now.
But if I'm not under the law according to the Bible, then how can you judge me by it?
Are you? Hold on.
Here's the problem, though. You just went to.
No, there's no problem. I'm not under the law. Jesus
Hold on a second. Perry, hold on.
Oh, remember that. He said, I'm not under the law because Jesus kept it perfectly for me, right? He fulfilled it and kept it perfectly for me. Remember that. That's going to come into play a little bit later on in the stream.
Okay. Can somebody please pull me up Romans chapter 6 verse?
My computer died. I can't.
I can't.
LOP can.
Yeah, I'm on my phone right now. Sorry. Also, I cannot pull it up.
Okay. Well, anyway, the verse says, "Since we're not under grace, should we then not follow the law? God forbid." So it says you're.
No, it doesn't. You're lying.
I really pull it up.
He said I'm lying. Let's read this real quick. All right, this is what he was quoting from Romans the 6th chapter. I'm going to start at verse 14, which is what he read, and then I'm also going to read down to 16. It says, "For sin shall not have dominion over you, for ye are not under the law, but under grace." Then this is what he skipped over, ironically enough, verse 15. "What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid. Know ye not that to whom ye yield yourselves servants to obey, his servants ye are, to whom ye obey, whether of sin unto death, or of obedience unto righteousness," right? And that's what Perry doesn't want to read, because it talks about having obedience unto God. But he skipped over verse 15, and that's like the knockout right there. That's what I cut his ass to shreds on that, because he'll cherry pick verse 14 and says that we're not under the law, but we're under grace. But yeah, he'll completely neglect the next verse that says, "What then? Shall we sin because we are not under the law, but under grace? God forbid." So it's saying what? Even though we're under grace and not under the law, does that mean that we now don't follow the law? No. That's what it's saying here. That even though we're under grace, that doesn't mean that we now go around and do what we want. You still got to live by the law. I mean, this is very simple to understand. So, I mean, this is a clear example of where he was clearly cherry picking and, not wanting to read the context, like I mentioned earlier, right? He'll pick one verse and run with it, but then he won't want to get the context unless when it's convenient for his own plot, just like we seen with John 6 earlier. So, I mean, this guy's getting his ass staggered.